Hi there everybody, right, been brought a Defender board set to have a look at. We've got the rest of the parts for it, but it's not booting, and here's what's going on. Start it up. Sorry about the banding on the screen, that's just purely on the phone, that's not on the screen. So what I'm seeing is partial rug pattern here and then some stripy outlines there. Okay, so the first thing I do is I give a visual inspection to the board. Well, I've got 4 LEDs on over there, which tells me it's got some kind of startup failure. As I look at it a little bit more closely, what I do is I look here and I go, hang about a minute, I seem to be missing some RAM chips here. And more to the point, a couple of sockets as well seem to be missing. So the first thing I thought was, well, is that correct? Has somebody started doing a RAM conversion on this and then failed? No, these all seem to be 4116 RAMs on here. Let me see if I can just zoom in slightly. I might be the wrong way up for the board. Pick a different one, see if I can find one that's actually got 4016 on it. They're usually pretty easy to identify. Anyway, those are the RAMs, and it looks like I've got some missing ones out of the socket. And up here, looking at a little bit of info online, I have the 2 different revisions of the Defender board that were produced, and this one is the one with 2 video decoder ROMs on it, which are there and there. And if you look in that corner, they all have RAM chips. So I'm going to start by populating some 4116s that I have on stock into these sockets here and see if this rug pattern starts to change at all, any. And then I'll put some sockets back in here and stick some RAM chips in there and see where we get to at that point. I've now replaced the rest of the RAMs in here and put 2 new sockets in and put 2 new RAMs in. So that's 5 RAMs it was missing to start with. Booted it up and we get a fraction further on it. I've just been poking around all the RAMs data in and write enable lines, which is pins 2 and 3 on every one of these chips, just to see if there's activity getting there from the CPU over here. If I have to, I'll break out the Fluke 6809 E-Pod for this and see where we can and can't write to RAM. However, I did notice this chip here with a bent pin. Pin 1 is VSS, which is ground basically. Yeah, so I'm going to pop that chip out, straighten its pin out, pop it back in, see where we get to. I've swapped out that RAM chip there and put a decent one in it, and I also found I had a poke around all the lines and found that one of my own ones off stock was dead, so I've changed that over. We've got a little bit further. If you notice, the rug pattern is starting to try and build at this end, and we now don't have another pixel stripe here that was going on before, which is always good. Now, what I did find that, and this is obviously not setting me up for a particularly good session here, but some fucking rank amateur had been playing around with this before me. That is a 4164, which does not run on the same voltages. And if you notice, they tried to bodge wire it and all sorts of things there. Might not be the exact cause of it, but stick the right chip in or finish the bloody job properly, whoever this was. This came to us through a third party to be looked at. Alright, well, according to me then I have data in, row address strobe, column address strobe, voltages at every point along all the banks of RAM. I'm going to have a look around the address lines now. So each one of these only has 1 bit available of data to it. So that means that for a full byte you need 8 chips. So I shall now have a look at the address lines and see if I'm getting any stuck addressing, because that kind of stinks of stuck addressing, does that sort of thing. If it's able to sort of draw part way across, you don't know. I mean, it could be now that it's trying to execute something in the ROMs, but I'm not seeing any change in the LED lights over here that indicate ROM problems. So, I mean, we all know how notoriously bad these ribbon cables can be, but this one looks like a pretty decent one. This was out of a cocktail version of the cabinet. So let's see where we're going with the address lines at this point. But according to me, I have data moving on all the pins in and out here, so it's trying to do something. Maybe it's just not getting far enough up up the RAM read and write list. So it might be time to get the Fluke pod out. I have the Fluke 6809 pod plugged in, and I'm doing a RAM test, 0 to 97FF, and I can clear the screen. So that's a good sign, if I can talk to the screen RAM. Okay, so I'll just have to figure out what else I can and can't do. I've actually done a ROM check, and I can read, there's some slightly strange addressing with this system, but I can read these first 4 ROMs starting at D1000 to FFF, and I can get all those signatures to verify. These ones here, I think I have to input some kind of bank number or set some kind of bit, because every one of these is giving me the wrong signature. I don't think that these are going to be bad. I will flip them out of the ROM board and stick them into the EEPROM reader and verify them that way. And if I'm getting the correct signatures back, what I can always do, just as a precaution, is I can whiz them into the correct ROM socket. This wouldn't stop it from going much further. This wouldn't stop the boot sequence though. I'm kind of droning on it a little bit, but it wouldn't stop the boot sequence from at least getting to its, at least clearing the screen. It should be able to do that. So hopefully this RAM test will, or at least this particular part of the RAM test will pass to 97FF. God, it's like watching paint dry, this. It actually is like watching paint dry. And now we're getting a moving pattern going through. I'm just going to leave it. I'll come back in a second when it's done. But I'm pretty confident that it's going to say it's going to be okay there. If it can go that far, it can probably go a bit further. It's going to start again with a moving pattern and then verify it all again. The RAM test completed just fine. I'm going to doing the next block of RAM, which is 9800 to BFFF. See what it does with that. We have a problem, Houston. So it's telling me that when I try to, I wish I could get back the other way now. Is it possible to go back? Yes, address error at B000. Loop. Well, no, don't loop. It's telling me that the address bits 1000 is the stuck bits problem. So what should happen is to get to B000 over here, I've got a binary converter, B000 on that side, should equal 1011. So if you think about this as being least significant bit, most significant bit over here, if I've got them the right way around, I always get them wrong. This would be A15 and that would be A0, put it that way. Right, so on our schematic here for the CPU, here is A15, 14, 13 and 12, which are those upper 4 bits. They all go to this chip here at 2K. Now unfortunately it's a really crap schematic is this, but it looks like they're all a 367 basically, which is good. So let me find that on the board, have a poke around with the oscilloscope, put it into loop mode, read write, and that's probably why it's not, that's at least another reason why it's not going to be doing anything. Okay, so full confession just before I get on to this next part. So a couple of days have gone past. I've actually filmed the rest of the repair. Unfortunately, a couple of parts didn't record quite properly. There was some kind of weird audio problem or something like that. It was completely unusable, even if I didn't want to sort of go to narrating over the top and everything, because I don't have the equipment here to reliably do it in any kind of quality. At the moment we're still in a bit of turmoil. So I've actually got this board now fully working again, but I want to just sort of go back and show a few things. If anybody skips back to the previous cut, you'll see that the PIA chip on here wasn't socketed previously, so the observant of you will spot that. I discovered the PIA chip was duff. So I got the B, in the last part we talked about the RAM from B00 to BFFF wasn't reading correctly. That literally turned out to be a dry joint on one of the sockets under here. I can't remember exactly which one, but I turned the board over and saw a massively cracked piece of solder and just retouched pretty much every one of them up, and it started reading at that point. There's nothing wrong with the video decoders, so this side of the board then started to work absolutely fine. So I turned my attention then to why the game then wasn't booting, which I knew it wasn't booting. Now, the PIA, the peripheral interface adapter over here, which is 6521, or is it 6821? I can never remember. Hang on, I've got a spare one somewhere on this bench. I know, I've just had it a moment ago, because I hid it out of the way. There we go. So this is a 6821, I always look at it myself. It's a whatever it is, anyway. Yeah, but that's the PIA, and it's whatever number that is on there. But it is actually a 2.1 series chip. So on the ROM reading itself doesn't have anything to do with the PIA, fortunately. It's all handled by standard glue logic. So the control signal and memory addressing comes along here, it goes through a circuit here. So you have all your address lines, all your data lines come in and out of this, plus and then the circuitry on here then handles the address decoding to then dump the correct ROM's data pins onto the data bus at the right time. So in other words, enabling the CS select. Now it's all done through paging. So what you find is your first 1, 2, 3, 4 ROMs here live at D00 to FFFF, and anybody who knows anything about 6, 8 and 6.5 series CPUs will know that the boot vector is up in FFFE, so in little endian format and everything. Ben's been very nice and brought me a brew. Say hello to everybody, Ben.
Hello to everybody, Ben.
So the boot vector is up in this ROM. So how do you get at the other ROMs? Well, theoretically you could stick them just elsewhere in memory. Unfortunately, Defender's geared up in such a way that it needs 48k worth of RAM down here. So you've only got 16k worth of ROM that you can play with up here. So they page in various ROMs at various points. Did some reading on the net to find out how that's done. There's a address which you write a particular value to, and it then sets some bits in here which then stay static until you clear those items, and that creates either a pathway to the PIA chip there, or to any of these other ROMs here. So digging around the whole schematic, what we found was that what you do is you chase back. It was very, very difficult to actually figure this out and work backwards, because it's not particularly well derived on the schematic. Schematic talks about 2K and 4K ROMs and page 7 and page 6, which doesn't even exist in the ROM map. So what we had to do was figure out which one of the ROMs we could read and which ones we couldn't. Well, we couldn't read anything at all at the time. So the only way to do that is to work your way backwards through the circuit. So you trace the chip select lines, or chip enable lines, back through a 7442, which is basically a decoder chip, and that will have a bit mask go in, and then that enables, until you change it, it enables a mask going out, which then sets something else. Now this is controlled one step further back by a simple OR gate here, which is 74LS32 chip there, which is a simple OR gate, and that is controlling part of it. So there were signals coming in and nothing coming out, and I was thinking, well, that's not quite right. So I pulled the chip, tested it out of circuit, and it definitely read as bad, popped a new 7432 in, and by setting the paging bit on the memory, I could then access every ROM here and verify their signatures using the Fluke up there, using the 6809 pod. So once we've got RAM working, we've got ROM working. There's actually not a lot more you can really do. At that point I chased my tail for nearly a full day. And what was happening was this, because I got it to this stage, so I'm going to switch it on and you'll see it powers up. Don't worry about the band going down the screen, that's the usual camera problem. Unit okay. So you think, yes, we've got it, we've nailed it. Au contraire. So anyway, we expect it to go into that, but what you don't expect is to see that happen there. And then it reset again. And the reason it's doing that is on the ROM board, what I didn't realise was that was why it was doing it. So on the ROM board here, you have 4 indicator lights there, which tell you status about the ROM board. According to the manual, they're supposed to go off, and they're not, they're staying on, which would normally indicate some kind of error. Apparently though, if it comes up unit okay, the 4 LEDs are supposed to blink twice and then go off, and they weren't doing that. Now, I chased around the board for quite some time with the Fluke and couldn't understand why, and chased around the logic and everything. And I finally looked at the LEDs, and then saw that basically there were things going into the PIA and nothing coming back out. So I'm going to swap that chip out. I have a working PIA. I've had to order some. Fortunately, they are not the most rarest to find part, but they're certainly not in mass abundance. So I've had to bulk buy some from outside the country, which I'll then hold on stock, and I'll put them on the web store. If anybody wants them, they'll be on there when they come in. I don't know the price yet till they arrive. So I'm just going to cut for 1 second and pop that chip back in, and you'll see the board working. There was actually a sound fault as well, and I'll talk about that in a second. PIA has been swapped over now. Let's start her up. Now that's a healthy sound when you can hear the sound do what it's supposed to do there. Now what we'll end up with straight away is we'll be in the test mode, because we don't have batteries on the board. Now this is a customer repair, and they haven't asked me to change the battery holder out, and I'm kind of, do I change the battery holder, don't I change the battery holder? Well, the board's in unbelievably good condition, so I'm going to talk to the client and see what their wishes are. There's a peg broken off there. I'll see what they want to do. If they want me to order a battery compartment for it, I'll order one. But the main thing is now, when it boots up, it stays there in that mode. Now the test mode will time out. I'm going to speed the process up by pressing the reset button, because pressing the reset button from warm will force it to go into game. Now you'll hear, well, you should hear probably the reset on the sound again. Well, you do sometimes, and sometimes you don't. There you go. And there we are, Williams Defender. And the game's running. Now the only thing I haven't tested yet is the inputs to the controls. I'm not seeing any reason why they shouldn't work, but I will, and I just don't have them hooked up to my harness adapter yet, so that's the next job. Now because this is a generic, I'm sort of going off piste here, but because this is the generic Williams adapter I've made for the bench, the control inputs can be different across a few different games. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically bring all the starts and fire buttons and joystick and everything down to a Molex connector, and then I'll make a Molex to the interface board connector, so that I can get them correct for each board. So say for example I have a Sinistar board to look at for Andy from Arcade Club next. Whilst I've got the Williams stuff out, I'll have a quick poke at that and see if I can get that running a game for him. But that needs a different set of controls, and there's a way to wire it up for an 8-way joystick, which is what I need to do so I can actually test it on the bench. So that'll be an off-camera job, but trust me, as far as I'm concerned, unless I find otherwise, this board is ready to go back to the customer. So the PIA chip, as you saw, I'm going to reset it again just so you can see what's supposed to happen. So I'm going to reset it. You're not seeing the monitor at the moment. Watch the lights, they come on and then go off, and then in a second when it says unit OK on the screen, which is saying unit OK now, there you go, and it flashes twice and goes off. So that's what was causing all the hold down on it before. Now you notice that this time it didn't go into test mode, and that's because there's enough charge in the capacitors on the board that are holding enough of the voltage for the RAM, the CMOS RAM and everything, but certainly not seeing any CMOS RAM errors either, which is always a good thing. I will stick some batteries in. I'll strap a 5-volt source just across there for now from the bench power supply, so I can test the CMOS. That'll be the easiest way to do that. I'll strap, so yeah, we'll give it 5 volts from the bench power supply, controllable. Anyway, so moving on, that was all this half of it. Now the soundboard, this is early Williams hardware, and they basically seem to reuse a lot of pinball stuff. Now normally on these boards there's some chips that aren't socketed on it, and this drove me insane for about half a day, did this one. So I swapped out. Unfortunately I had, by grace of a pile of boards that I got given to use for parts, which are also to help out Andy as well, I can pull from them if I need to, there was a working soundboard in there. That's a 6802 chip, no 6502, a 6802, and then we've got a PIA 6821, and then we've got a 6810 RAM, which is, don't try and stick a 6116 in there even though the address and data pins are the same, and then we've got a 2716 ROM. So the other board was working absolutely perfect, so I managed to swap over the CPU and managed to swap over the ROMs to prove that the ROM and everything, even though I could read the ROM on my EEPROM reader, no problems. So I couldn't understand why it wasn't starting up. Nothing was happening basically, and there's no watchdog circuit on here at all. There's literally just a reset, and it was bringing the CPU to reset, and that was it. But everything then was staying stuck. So in other words, it was trying to read, and it'd get so far, and then it'd stick. So my first thought was, is the PIA bad? No, is the RAM bad? So I started pulling them out and socketing them and testing them elsewhere, and finding out they're all absolutely fine. Anyway, the long and the short of it, which I'm just going to turn the board off whilst I do this. The long and the short of it was that the data bus from the CPU was missing 3 traces. 3 were blown basically. Full disclosure, 2 were, 1 wasn't. I lifted one by accident whilst I was desoldering it. It was a really old, bad board, and the solder literally the traces just lifted up as I desoldered the chip socket, because it had a really bad socket here, a really old single swipe socket. I put a nice dual swipe socket in there. So the components were all good, and I tested them around on the other board, and it just turned out to be 3 bad traces on the back of that. But it's amazing how that can take up half your day trying to figure it out. So that's the end of this. That's a Williams Defender board serviced and done. Sounds a lot easier than it actually was when you look at the recap. So that's it. Going to sign off for now. Thank you very much for watching and sticking all the way out till the end. Definitely will be starting to produce more videos. I think we're coming up to video number 100. On my YouTube it says 99 videos. This would actually be the 100th uploaded, but it's not the 100th published. There are a couple of hidden ones and test videos I've stuck into there, and I may go through and delete those, but they've got comments from people who they've been shared with privately, so I don't know. This might, we're coming very close to the 100th published video, and when we do the 100th published, there'll be some, quite a big update and things like that. I've been struggling to get back into the whole videos thing after moving out of the house into office and now into another place and everything. So it's been a bit of a struggle to get to do this, because you tend to just sort of plough through the work as quickly as you can, and you don't have time to do this bit that much. But I will try and do some more. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you've stumbled across it and you're not subscribed to the channel, do subscribe. I will be producing more. And if you want to ask any questions, stick them in the comments below. If you need a board repairing and you're based in the UK or Europe, then hit us on our website. As long as you can mail the board in to us reliably, then we could probably fix it. Pretty much anything from the early era. So, Breakouts, Space Invaders, Defenders, most of the early Atari boards and things like that we can do. And if I can't, I know somebody who definitely can. Alright, if you want to get in touch, do get in touch. We're also on Facebook and Twitter and everything, so you can find the links down below the comments. Alright, until the next video, see you later.